to the Built on Air podcast, the variety show for all things Airtable. Each episode, we cover 4 different segments. It's always fresh and different and lots of fun while you get the insider info on all things Airtable. Our hosts and guests are some of the most senior experts in the Airtable community. Join us live each week on our YouTube channel every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern and join our active community at BuiltOnAir.com/join. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor, OnToAir.com. Any business running on Airtable gets the value that Airtable has, but also needs a few more functions to complete their operations. That's where OnToAir comes in. It's a suite of tools for any business running on Airtable to maximize your operations efficiencies and automations. One customer, John, states that OnToAir enables his business to function properly without having to think about building their own software, and that is pretty invaluable. The OnToAir Airtable apps are amazing, and we use them often and are very happy with the results. So join John and hundreds more customers and take your Airtable to the next level with OnToAir. Sign up today with promo code BuiltOnAir for a 10% discount. Check them out at OnToAir.com. And now let's check out today's episode and see what we built on air. Welcome to the Built on Air podcast, season 12, episode 2. Good to be back with you. Good to have everybody with us. We always enjoy our time spent here learning about Airtable. We have myself, Dan Fellers, and regular host Alli with us.
Hello.
And we have special guest Lorenzo Lee with us. Welcome, Lorenzo.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on. We'll learn more about Lorenzo's story later in the episode, so stay tuned for that. I will go through what we're going to talk about. The Built on Air podcast is a weekly 1-hour live show, and we go through everything Airtable related. We always start with our Round the Bases segment, talking about what's going on in the Airtable community. Then we'll do a spotlight on OnToAir, our primary sponsor. Then we will do a segment where we learn more about Lorenzo and his experience and background and how he came to the Airtable universe. And then Lorenzo will walk through a base for transportation dispatch platform that he built. We'll showcase that. And then we'll spotlight our community. And then lastly, Alli will end with a case for interface, talking about charts and usage of charts in interfaces. So with that, we will get to our Round the Bases, and we go through different communities, highlight everything so we keep you up to date on all things Airtable so you know what the latest is. First, I wanted to showcase, I saw this in the Airtable community. Last week, we had Scott on, who's also with us in the comments. Welcome back, Scott. And I thought this was interesting. There's a thread that started, 4 years ago, 2018, and talking about incel progress bars. So we did this. Scott showed how to do this, and I thought it was just kind of coincidence that this came back up. People commented on it again. So it's always cool. I always love seeing like threads that have been around for years. You kind of see like the evolution of Airtable within these threads. And so anyways, there's more examples, and there's even some code examples of how to do things to generate those charts. So if you want follow up, this thread is relevant, or check out last week's segment from Scott showcasing how to build cool mini charts within your cells like this.
Right. I love how creative people get. It's so
cool.
That is, I at the end of last episode, I talked about adding the gray bars on the end, and the example above that was exactly that. But I love how they added the colors, how they change depending on how far up it is. I just love that, and that's really cool what you're showing right now.
Yeah, this one's pretty cool with the checkbox for done, and just kind of the partial, and then the information underneath. We really do need to do a progress bar competition, huh?
Right.
Some cool stuff in here. So anyways, just follow up from Scott just said that we need a progress bar contest.
Great minds.
Yeah. All right, so that's the last follow-up. A couple new items. So this came out the day of, I think, our show last week or shortly after on Tuesday. People started seeing this pop up on your forms, on your Airtable forms, a little checkbox that said, email me a copy of my responses. Did any of you get this?
I actually didn't, but
I did not.
Talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I did. I don't think I did, but it was interesting to see. So this popped up. No, this just was there. Like it wasn't an opt-in thing that you could choose if you wanted it there. It just started showing up. And when you clicked on that checkbox, then it had a input box to enter your email. And for obvious reasons, this was not well received by the community and those that started seeing this. And so not sure what the thinking was to push this out, or they were probably A/B testing it. But they did then retract it and pulled it back from all their forms. So I think within the day, they pulled it back, maybe the next day.
Something like that. Yeah, there was people were not happy about it.
It's interesting they can just push something globally like that on accident.
Yeah. And there was a couple threads. It looks like there was another one. Oh yeah, and Scott says it redirected people to Airtable's website after submitting the form and asked them to sign up for an Airtable account. So it's kind of a growth hack.
Right. I wonder if it's meant to be internal. Like when you're filling out because I guess you already get a copy. You get notified when someone submits a form response.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's optional. Yep.
But I don't know if you get the details.
Yeah. So they must be, maybe it was like only on free basis. Maybe it's kind of part of like, for free forms, they might do something like that. But I think it was showing up for on paid plans, which definitely was not cool. So so good they at least retracted that, and hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have their own processes set up, where as soon as when somebody submits the form, they have their own email that goes out. I mean, that's just one reason why people would be upset, because like there's so many different, reasons why people wouldn't like that. Yeah. At least not without the option to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So there was a couple threads there. This may not even be the one. There was another one that I'm pretty sure they responded to officially to say that it wasn't there. But yeah, there was multiple people that brought this to their attention. Mm-hmm. So that's, if you saw that is there. This one, I don't think we mentioned it last week. So this one came out in August when we were off, and I just wanted to highlight it. So they updated the action within automations for the Google Doc, the ability to update an existing Google Doc with new data. So kind of like a running document. And now that I say that, maybe we did talk about this last week. Do you remember, Alli?
I don't think we did. Not the specific update. No.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight this. So if you're using Google Docs and you're using their automation to create a new Google Doc, now you can actually update an existing one with more information. So maybe like a meeting log history or some kind of running history that continually updates from records. You can do that use case now. So that's a cool little new thing that you can do within the automations.
Yeah, I like that how it says at the bottom of that post that you can choose, it can be inserted at the top of the bottom. That I think is really, really powerful. I'm still bothered that they chose to call it Document Automator, because it's like, it just doesn't fit.
Yeah. And that's not what it's called in the app.
Yeah.
It's almost like they created like this new product, but it's really just this one little integration.
It's silly.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think that was a marketing ploy there. So yeah, so that's kind of cool. I just want to highlight that. Check that out. And before we go on, Scott says the key drawback here is that the document needs to be hard coded into the automation, so you can't like dynamically associate it with the record.
Right.
That is a feature you can do in UntiTail's Google Doc integration. So I'll give a plug for that. Nice. If you need more advanced functionality than what Airtable has, check out UntiTail's Google Doc.
Love it.
All right. Now the big one. This was kind of cool. So there's a new beta out there, record templates. Well, it's kind of cool. I don't know what it is, but it sounds cool.
It does sound cool. I'm excited. It was quite a different sign up process than they typically do for betas. It was very, I mean, and I really loved, Kavan, if you're out there listening, your comment on this thread was like, you stole all the thoughts out of my head and wrote it down. So thank you so much. But yeah, you have to give your a specific base ID that you want to enable it for, or list of base IDs, which I found interesting. Instead of just at an account level, you had to tell them which bases you wanted to turn it on for. I did sign up, haven't heard back yet.
Yeah. So deadline's tomorrow. So if you're watching and you want to get into the beta, fill out this link right here by tomorrow. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. I'm really excited to take a look, because this is something that, you know, it's kind of standard practice in the consulting world to set up automations that kind of do this. So this will make things easier if done well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Yep. Cool stuff. All right. Moving on. In the BuiltOnAir community, I thought this was worth highlighting. So Jonathan asks if there is a way to designate which email an automation error goes to. And I think we've addressed this in the past, but definitely worth bringing up because it's not super obvious. But I think we confirmed, I mentioned, and then Scott confirmed that it's actually in their support article. At some point they updated it. But basically, if you're getting errors with your automation, whoever last toggles it to be enabled, whatever user that was that enables the automation is the one that will get the error messages. So if you're setting it up on behalf of somebody else, then you might want to tell them to toggle it to turn it on so that they get the emails. I've got a use case where I need to do that because I get all these emails and they're not relevant to me. I need to hand that over to my client so that they get all the emails.
Yeah, I get a lot of them.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely worth being aware of that, so that you're in the know there and it's going to the right person. And it's only going to one person. That's the other thing, is sometimes you think other people might be seeing it, but it really only goes to that one email address.
Mm-hmm. Which I hope we get more control over that in the future.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to specify multiple people. Mm-hmm. So, all right, next one up. So Chris Dancy, friend of the show, posted in the Facebook community that I guess last week there was an update to interfaces and it caused a bunch of error warnings. I'm not a heavy interface user, so I don't think I had this issue. Alli, I assume you saw it.
I didn't see the specific thing that he's talking about, but I have experienced some weird issues and seen some errors within the edit. Well, this has happened to me if like somebody adds a new single select option or removes one. Sometimes that can break it, but I have seen them actually push out some updates recently. Like if you drag in a field element, then you can, if you make it the like card layout, then I've seen in some cases where you're able to pick the fields that it displays, but I don't always see it. And it's been very glitchy. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this as well, but I'm excited for that day because I want to be able to pick the fields that are displayed on that card.
Yeah.
But I have seen, like, you know, the red text he's seeing there in that little pop-up. I've been getting a lot of that with that element.
Interesting. This guy here.
Yeah.
Was changed and no longer be selected. So yeah, so I guess, and other people have mentioned that they got it as well. I think this was on Thursday. Yeah, worth knowing if you might need to go into your interface builder to I think you just had to like reconnect the field to get it to go away.
Yeah.
So kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Zoe, if you saw any issues there.
No, I didn't.
Gotcha. All right, let's go back to the BuiltOnAir community. Never mind, this is the same one. I had it in there twice. Okay, going to Twitter. This was somebody. I just thought it was kind of cool pointing out. So this was a early investor in Airtable and talking about his experience with Airtable. So if you click on his article, goes to his blog. So just kind of an interesting article, his perspective as an early investor and what he loved about Airtable and how he's used it. And so he was a user first and knew the founder, Howie, and so got into their Series B investment and talks a little bit about his experience and why he is a fan of Airtable and chose to invest in it. So interesting article worth pointing out.
Yeah, he even called it rad, it looks like.
It's
been a while since I heard that.
Yeah, he's an unapologetic Homer in the worst way.
Love it.
Any other tidbits, anything interesting pop out in this week in Airtable?
I'm excited for them to, I got an email saying that I did not place in the interface designer contest, which is okay. But in that email, they did say that they were going to be putting some stuff up on the community on Monday, but I didn't see anything get posted yesterday.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see. I think they were going to highlight some of the universe entries, and I'm excited to see that.
Hey, we have a friend joining us.
Camille.
Hello.
Welcome. Hide our overlay. All right, welcome, Camille. Good to see you. Glad to have you join us.
Yay. Traffic.
Hey, Alli, for your Airtable interface contest, what domain was your interface in?
Oh, I entered the two different ones. One was just a transaction tracker, and the other was an inquiry response generator, basically, like a way to create custom responses to like leads. So
got it.
It's cool. We'll have to have a day where we all just show interfaces. I think that'd be fun.
We'll show the losers.
So by building the interface, did you see like how you might use it in the future? I mean, I think that's maybe part of their goal. Are you kind of like, oh, I could see myself using this?
Well, it's funny. I love that you asked that because I actually created the inquiry tracker is something that I use myself, and I submitted it.
Okay.
I use it so often, and it's been so helpful for me. So it's funny. It was kind of the other way around. But yes, absolutely. I love it. I mean, there's so many use cases. So I'm excited to see like a big list of them all because there's so many things you can't even think of,
Yeah.
Right.
So that means the bar is pretty high for the winners. I'll have high expectations.
Well, from what I've seen on LinkedIn, there's some really cool stuff.
I was about to say, I saw some screenshots on LinkedIn and it didn't even look like interfaces. I was like, what am I looking at?
It was really cool. There was a lot of like some stiff competition out there for sure. So it's exciting.
Camille, I can't remember. Did you submit something?
No. So what happened was I saw the competition And I was considering, do I want to go, and do all of like the polish and the, documentation and stuff? And I was like, no. And then the day that the competition was over, I just made like 5 interfaces. And I was like, let's just see what I could do if I decided to do it. And like, I was like, once you get past the weird dragging, the very determined dragging system that they have, you could put some stuff together. And I think the new buttons were, very, very useful. It's like, it's on its way. It's still not where, I think I want it to be necessarily, but I think it's better than when it started. I think that's for sure. And I'm curious to see what other people did in terms of full builds. And exciting news. Last week I wasn't here because I was on a flight after visiting my brother. While I was visiting, we made an Airtable together, guys.
Nice.
I did it. I infiltrated the system.
I love that.
All right. So we'll have to get him on the show to showcase it.
And we made an interface. So
I was visiting my brother last week, and we also made an Airtable base.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Couple. I love that. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
I was kind of bummed out. I was gonna build a couple interfaces for the contest, but they didn't really have the features that I wanted until it started. So they kept releasing features for the interface, like buttons and stuff, after it started. And so then it's like, oh, I would have done it if you would have had this button system and this menu thing or whatever. But so it's nice to know that they're still releasing features at a startup pace for Airtable. I think that's one of the main draws that I like about it is, even though it can be annoying when you just have random features, or if you've ever had a base where one base has new stuff and another base doesn't, and you're trying to like do something for a client and their base doesn't have the features. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before, but that's weird sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise I like it.
Yeah. Some quick comments from the community. Scott lost all his money betting on Alli. Comment. And then Justin, look forward to seeing the entries. There are moments where an interface designer inspires me, but it's still not something that I get to a lot. So yeah, definitely excited. We were hoping, this week that we could go through that, but maybe next week they'll have that out. Sounds like they are moving forward.
Exciting.
All right, let's move on. So our primary sponsor, OnToAir, is a all-in-one toolkit to run your business on Airtable. It's a suite of apps that allow any business to take their Airtable to the next level. And as you have heard in previous episodes, we're getting close to a launch of a brand new built from scratch form builder on top of Airtable. We are getting very close to that. Hopefully either this weekend or next weekend, that will be available on an invitation only basis to start while we work through bugs and final iterations of features. So if you want to get early access to that, reach out to us. I've showcased the builder quite a bit of how you build your forms, and we are dog fooding our products. So we built a bug submission. So any bugs that we're finding while we're QAing it, we have a form that we built to submit our bugs. So I thought I'd just showcase that. Some cool features that we have. So this is actually a single select field, and you have the ability to display it in different ways. So this is kind of a button select option where you can select your single select as buttons. You can also select them as radio buttons or a single select dropdown. So there's different ways that you can display the different field types within Airtable, which is kind of cool. And then this gets saved back into Airtable as the single select option. You have attachments, and you also support for Markdown for our description of our bug. We have a Markdown editor, and then you submit it. So just kind of a sneak peek. This is just a few of the field types. We support almost all of the field types. Not all of them yet. Barcode we don't support, and some of the other ones like rollups and Lookups are a little bit tricky just because of how they work. So there's some workarounds for those. So anyways, check us out at ontoair.com. Sign up and reach out if you want to get access to the new forms that are coming out very soon. With that, we're going to move on and we're going to learn more about Lorenzo and your background. Lorenzo, why don't you give us kind of your story? What's your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you found Airtable.
Okay. Origin story. Well, I guess my background is development. So I've been a developer writing code probably since I was 14 or 15. I actually went to school for art first. And then I went back to school for development only because I live in Minneapolis and, my dream was to work for like Pixar when I was like a kid or something. So it's like just a traditional like artist and went to school for that, went back to school for development and then moved to California and started working in Silicon Valley. So long history in just traditional software development. And then I branched off and started a company just doing general development for startups and small businesses, like just building solutions, whether it's like a mobile app, desktop app, or whatever. And then over time, dealing with a lot of startups, they always need like faster ways to implement and build things. So that's kind of how I stumbled upon Airtable as a means for building solutions quickly. So that's kind of like the origin story of me working with Airtable. And usually, I guess, in the domains I work in, there's kind of like three different segments of a business that we kind of focus on. And you have like your acquisition, you have your operations, and then you kind of have product. Like those are kind of like the three delineations. So Airtable is kind of a unique product because it fits nicely in all three of those, where, if you're trying to like do operations, kind of like using Airtable as a CRM, it's perfect. But if you're also trying to use Airtable for like acquisition, like managing marketing stuff, it's really good for that too. Where I kind of started was using Airtable from a product perspective, which is different, but it's one of those things where I would build solutions, whether it's like someone who's like, hey, I want to build a custom like Telegram subscription platform, and we'd use Airtable for the database. Or I want to build a game using Unity 3D, but the product people, I want to build all the interfaces and kind of like the game logic would be built like an Airtable, and you might like sync that to like a real database that your game would connect to. So using it like in that perspective, or maybe like a chat app, lots of apps in Airtable where maybe the product is like a fitness. Maybe there's like a custom like recipe generator thing where people fill in a bunch of information and then every week they get like a custom recipe suggestion list or something like that. So like that product itself would be built in Airtable, even if Airtable wasn't the interface that the customers would use. So that's kind of where I spent a lot of time, where a company would come to me and they would have an idea or a concept, and they would come to us and they'd say, well, what is the best way for us to like get there the fastest, right? And so then you'd ask questions about scale, how much data there is, how fast do they need it, and so Airtable really fits nicely in that domain. So those are kind of like, I'm mostly product and operations. So a lot of stuff is just product based, and then there's some stuff as well that's a lot of operations. So a lot of like CRMs or people who come limping from like HubSpot or something, or like Asana, and they're like, oh, I need a bunch of stuff. I need to be able to manage customers, but I need to be able to click a button and generate an invoice, or know exactly when a contract's been signed so that I can send the task to these, so stuff like that. So lots of CRM stuff as well. So that's kind of what my focus is, and what I like the product stuff better, but the operation stuff comes a lot more, and it's more standardized. So like at this point we have like a CRM like template. So if someone comes, like a standard company, there's a standard template we have that already has all the bells and whistles of like QuickBooks integration, DocuSign, PandaDoc, Google Drive, Slack, all that stuff with all the columns that you would see like in a HubSpot or Salesforce CRM. And there's some other integrations like data enrichment. So HubSpot's got cool features where you can, anytime someone comes into your system as a contact, HubSpot just knows their business and could just add that data. So we have features like that, or features like you click a button on a specific contact and a widget will open up on the side and like bring in all the mail messages from that person and allow you to respond to them. Kind of similar to like HubSpot, where you have your email integrated right within the experience. So we do a lot of stuff like that.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a cool background. I really like how you broke out those 3 different segments. I think that's very true. And it's interesting because, I don't do a lot of the product stuff like you're talking about. More of on our consulting, it's definitely more of the acquisition and operation side. But there's probably some pretty cool use cases on the product side as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Good stuff. And so you're now back in Minneapolis, is that correct?
Unfortunately, yes.
That's all right. You can be proud of that.
I don't know.
I was there last week.
Were you?
Yeah, that's what I did last episode.
I mean, it's nice for a couple months a year until winter comes for 6 months, but once you see the ocean and the mountains every day, it's hard to transition back to the snow. We'll just put
baby. California life.
Definitely. I don't know about LA though. LA's getting kind of rough.
But we have the ocean and also mountains and also smog.
Yeah.
Yeah, smog and
Remember how I was 15 minutes late to this very podcast episode because of the traffic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, traffic too. That traffic is that's crazy. When I lived in California, one of my first jobs in Silicon Valley was working at yahoo.com. But I lived in Berkeley and I had to walk to a bus, to an Amtrak train, to a trolley just to get to work every day in Santa Clara. It was like an hour and a half commute each way. And it was the fastest way to get there. Only faster way would be if you had like a motorcycle, because motorcycles just drive right through traffic. But other than that, that was pretty brutal commute.
Yeah, that sounds
the price you pay for the ocean and the mountains.
That's
and
right.
also the smog.
Very cool. Well, we're glad to have you on, Lorenzo. Glad to have you in the community at BuiltOnAir, and the name of your agency.
Lodic Digital.
Lodic Digital.
Yep.
Cool. So feel free to reach out to him. We'll put his website in the notes. And cool. So you're gonna show with us. If you want to get your screen ready, I'll transition real quick.
Oh yeah. Let me just show.
Yeah, make that visible.
Like
so
simple.
Lorenzo is going to walk through a base that he's built, and this is actually kind of more in that product side, so that's kind of cool. Most of the demos we see are kind of the operational side, so this will be cool to see a full product built inside of Airtable. And get your screen ready, and I'll add it. There we go. It's showing.
Okay, so this base is a transportation in the transportation space. So transportation company, just to kind of explain the concept, people who need rides to like a doctor's appointment or a clinic appointment or whatnot, the insurance company will pay for that trip. And so there's a lot of companies, they're called NEMT companies. And NEMT companies, what they do is they're basically a facilitator of those trips. So the insurance company will reach out to an NEMT company. They will call them, or the NEMT company will like download like a CSV of all the trips they have to do for the day. So a company, anyone can have a company if you go to the government or whatever and you get a license. But anyways, you get that CSV and then you're like, all right, I got to pick up these 7 people and I have to bring them to and from the trip. I have to get a signature, and then that's it. Then I submit that claim to the insurance companies and I get paid for it. Well, there's no real software that focuses specifically on that sub industry. There's some that are popping up, but mostly there's not a ton of interest in that space. So anyways, what I built was basically like a dispatch platform that's pretty basic, but it kind of like fills that void. And so an NEMT company might come and they will see trips here. These trips will automatically populate via make. So what happens is a trip will come in from like a transportation company through like a webhook there's a little bit more to it. There's like some AWS and some other architecture that was built out. But anyways, a verified trip will come in through a webhook, and then this will basically find the company the trip belongs to. It can automatically assign a driver if a driver is available and a vehicle. It'll also go and update the trip with like Amazon. It'll update the trip with like mapping. So like when you go back to this base, you can see like a specific map, for instance, of exactly where this pickup is, for instance. So basically all the insurance companies submit data through Motive Care. If you see this, is just one of these like brokers. And so they get trips from insurance companies, they send them over to this platform. This platform figures out all the details about the trip, what company the trip belongs to, and then it automatically assigns the trip, the driver, the pictures, everything, so that this company now can just sit here in Airtable and figure out these trips. They can schedule the trip. They can unschedule if they need to. They can say they're on the way. Basically, they can assign drivers to the trip. This was built a while ago before interfaces, but interfaces would be like the perfect dispatch platform for this. But previous to interfaces, this is, you would just click this button to, like, for instance, assign a driver. And then once you assign a driver, I don't have any drivers assigned right now, but once you assign a driver, they have this Glide mobile app is also connected to the base. So the Glide mobile app user would get the trip right here. And then they could sign off when the trip is done, they could like do a signature, and then that signature would automatically come back into Airtable in like a signature field here. So there's like a signature field, and they would come back and it would just be a signature. And after the trip is done and completed, there's other scenarios here for like sending the trip to Motive Care. So you'd actually send the trip. So previously, before this solution existed, you'd come to a company and a company would literally run this off of like an Excel spreadsheet or something. They'd have an Excel spreadsheet. They'd call the drivers and they'd say, hey, here's a trip. The driver would like do a signature on a piece of paper. They would scan it in, and then one by one, they would go to like the insurance company's website or like Motive Care, and they would like fill out a form for every trip. So a company might have like 300 trips a day or like a week, and they would just have people that would literally sit and just one by one fill out these trip forms. So this solution completely like does that for them, and all the trips after the trips get completed, it automatically just goes right to the insurance company. The signature gets sent to them, and then they get paid out. It is multi-tenant, so it does have the ability where you can like basically like copy the base and have like a base per transportation company, and then that solution will figure out this scenario will figure out like which company and which trip that belongs to, and then assign it appropriately. So it's kind of like a multi-tenant solution. But this was one solution kind of similar in like that product space where it's like, all right, we need a solution to do this thing. Do you just build it from scratch? Do you use Airtable or some other solution? And there are some drawbacks to using Airtable. You know, it's quick build. You can build stuff really fast. But, you know, in some cases, before interfaces, the experiences were a little bit hard for some users. But that's been rectified. The other thing is a lot of companies want like financial data and other stuff in there, like how much money did I make on a user? But because you can't really properly hide columns and fields, it's hard sometimes if you don't want your dispatch to like see your book of business or how much you're making per trip or something like that for a user. So those are some things that at sometimes we will build an interface on top of Airtable using like Jet Admin or like, you know, one of those other apps that can kind of like give even more segmented data to users. But this would be like a typical thing that you might use as like a product to solve a problem quick and dirty that a company can use.
That's awesome.
Super cool.
So on the business side, I'm curious, is this something you built on behalf of another company?
I did. Well, I partnered with a company and we built out a solution. It's funny because previous to this, there was like I built this piece of software for an interpreting company that's kind of like the same kind of domain, but it's interpreting instead of transport, but same deal, right? You get licensing, you have to interpret for the appointments. And that was custom. So we built that out literally with code. It took forever. And then Airtable comes along and it's like, man, I pretty much built Airtable, but it took like a year and it wasn't even as cool. And then Airtable comes along. So partnered up and then built out a solution and you know, have companies right now that are basically using it in their own segmented bases to run their transportation companies.
Gotcha. So you partnered with this company and then they're taking it to other similar companies and different.
Yep. So I'm kind of more like the on the technical and usability end of it. And the more features Airtable adds, the cooler it becomes to do things like this with the more features and stuff. I guess the only challenge is it's multi-tenant. So there's a base per company. So then it's like if you have to update a base, like for instance, interface, there's no way for me to like migrate an interface if we build some cool interfaces from company A to company B to company C. You know, it's a very manual effort.
Would you also have to duplicate all of your make scenarios too? Because if you're firing off of web hooks and then using that to control, put this information in this Airtable field, well, it's looking at a particular base. So do you need like a very complex make scenario or multiple?
Yeah, complex make scenario. So that webhook that I showed you brings in trips from everybody. So this is like this vendor will send us trips for all the companies. And so then there's a system in place that'll determine what base belongs to that company. You know how like in a scenario you can like add a to a base for in your Airtable scenarios, you can like delineate just that. So you can say, hey, this company belongs to this base, and so add the trip there. So, but yeah, at the beginning it was just like one, and then as we expanded, we did have to like build out and kind of like scale that. So, for sure.
That's pretty cool to think. So today there's people getting rides that's all being tracked and monitored in Airtable.
Yeah, Airtable and Glide, they don't even know it. But yeah. That's awesome. And Airtable is also really cool during the testing phase because like some of these buttons, for instance, these buttons trigger webhooks. So for instance, if someone rejects a ride or there's a ride change event, right, or like a canceled trip, those buttons actually exist in the Glide mobile app because the driver is going to see a trip and they can accept it or cancel it. So after you assign a trip, there's a webhook that, well, it's not even a webhook anymore because now Glide's connected to Airtable. Before we had Excel between them or Google Sheets, but
wow.
Now Glide connects directly with Airtable. So anyways, when you assign a trip, they see it. But during testing or if there's something wrong with an app, a dispatch person can come in here and like click a button to cancel a trip, for instance. And then these modules basically trigger these events from the Glide app or from Airtable. So we wanted to make it flexible. So like if someday in the future Airtable doesn't scale or we have to put like whatever, Softar or like JetAdmin or some other interface on top of Airtable for from an experience perspective, we don't have to modify some of these modules. Some of them have to change because they're still relying on Airtable database, but some of them don't have to rely on Airtable, and we can start to scale those out and make them more flexible. So that was kind of the goal of the project. But definitely we started with Airtable because it's just so flexible, and you can see, because I can see the database, I don't have to like build it on top of like, you know, any other like MySQL or MongoDB or something, and then I have to build an interface on top of that just for people to interact with the data. So Airtable was like the perfect solution for a quick build out.
Yeah, that is so cool. So you're a longtime Glide apps user even before they had Airtable support. What's your impression of Glide apps?
It has its limits. It's pretty cool. I have some crazy. You should see some of the scenarios I've had before where I had to go from Airtable to like Google Sheets to Glide because I was trying to sync those. So Airtable, that was awesome when they made that change, but Glide apps is pretty cool. You know, there's really good features that they have. Some, for the mobile perspective, some things can be like very tedious or annoying if you're building like a really big app because of like how the menu systems work when you're like creating things. I'm not a super fan. Like I wish I could like, for instance, like add JSON, for instance, to like make a change or something to like, you know, if you have like a form in a Glide app with like 30 options or something with like webhook triggers and stuff, like it can be very tedious to go in and like change things one by one by one. But it's a lot nicer than some of the other mobile app experiences that I've played with in the no code space. So
awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love seeing real life demos, and that's a pretty cool application that sounds like you're scaling it. How many different locations is it supporting now?
I have about 15 that it's supporting. So there's opportunity. There's a lot more that we could do. That's like no marketing, kind of like word of mouth in network thing, trying to work out some kinks, trying to slow the scale because all the base changes are one by one. Yeah. You know, it's really challenging when you get started and you get like initial feedback from users that are like, hey, we want billing, or can we add an integration to like sync this to QuickBooks because that's where we do our payouts for our drivers or something like that. You know, that type of stuff. It's like every change you have to replicate to all these bases, and it's like until it'll be nice when Airtable releases, if they ever do, the ability to like add fields and stuff like that with the API. I would love that because then I could just completely code out the whole thing. But until then, it's very manual. So I do have trepidation about growing too fast, and then, you know, or you're on base 1 point. I don't know. I don't even know. But
you could do a bit with scripts, but there's still limitations there.
Yeah.
Like you can't generate a formula field.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's like I know there's like some stuff out in the wild where like you can update fields or whatever, add new columns, but you know, I don't know about putting infrastructure time into like unsanctioned stuff, and Airtable can just like You know,
shut that down. Yeah.
Airtable can be a dream killer for a lot of people building ecosystems around Airtable, and I'm like, oh man, they're moving so fast. It's like you really gotta be real networked in with them, or like have a completely different, unique way that you're doing something to like value add and just like stay competitive without worrying about being cannibalized. You know, it's something I've seen in. I was in the healthcare space for a long time, and anytime you'd have, you know, some EHR that opens up like the platform, or people are making modules or making a book of business, and then they're like, oh, that's a great idea, and they just bring it in house. You know, so but yeah, so anyways, I won't be doing any unsanctioned stuff. I'll just wait for Airtable to like allow me to write scripts for stuff like that. Then it'll be cool, especially if I could do like base copy and like replication. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's honestly, like, I've, you know, had ideas similar to yours, but that's been the holdback where I haven't gone forward with them.
Yeah. Or permissions.
Yeah.
If you like, if I could have like multi-tenant, like a super base, depending on obviously how many records are being generated, but if I could segment it that way, that'd be sweet too, you know, or maybe even build interfaces, and then people don't even see the underlying database. They just see the nice interfaces I build, you know, with buttons. That would be another way, if I could just share those interfaces and they don't have access to the base. So I think there's going to be some things coming that might completely change how I architect this particular business thing. So that's another reason why I'm just scared of growth, because I'm a fan of building things that can scale fast, but I don't need like every 100 clients I have to add like 10 team members to the business. So I try to find ways where I can do stuff that's, I mean, if I'm an automator and an integrator, it's dumb to not be able to automate, integrate my business. So
yeah,
it's kind of self-serving.
Exactly. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you so much for showing that. And we will definitely send people your way. Especially if you're in the transportation world, you definitely need to reach out to them.
Yeah. You ride to the doctor. I got you covered.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you, Lorenzo. Real quick shout out to our BuiltOnAir community, people like Lorenzo and many other. We have thousands of people in our Airtable community, our BuiltOnAir community. So please join us if you're not already. BuiltOnAir.com/join will get you in to both our newsletter and our Slack community, where people are interacting every day and helping each other out to be better Airtable users. So please join us at BuiltOnAir.com. Finally, Alli is going to walk us through charts and interfaces.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So this is just a really random hack that I thought up the other day. And I'm just going to demo this really quickly. I believe there are some limitations. I think you have to have a pro plan for this to work. But we will get there in a moment. So basically I have a pretty simple setup here, just between two tables, opportunities and months. I like to set up a months table, or like, you know, weeks, months, years, however granular you want to get, to like bucket data and summarize it. And here I've got just a count field of my opportunities. And then I have a number field that's just an entry where I can enter in a target or a goal that I have for that month. And something that is really difficult to do is to like actually get a chart in Airtable that will compare those numbers, because you need to have one column for a chart to pull off of, and then you can group by another thing, but all of your data has to be in one field. So this is my hack to get around that in an easy way. In the past, I would have maybe created like another table linked to months and had 2 rows per month, one for target, one for actual, if that makes sense. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a view here and call this target. I'm just going to hide everything except my target numbers and how about just the date. And then I'm going to make this synced to a new base. create a new base. All right, so now I have this here. Everything's called target. I'm just going to rename this like months. We'll call this CRM reporting. And now over here, I want to just duplicate this view, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sync in a second source into that same table. But instead of my target column here, I actually want my count, so my number of opportunities that I actually have. And I've named this actual versus target, because once I get this other view in there, I'm going to just toggle this on. And then I'm not going to actually click the sync this view to another base, because this wouldn't, I believe so far, it only gives you the option to just create a new table in that base. But I want to add it as a second data source to this table already. So I'm going to go to here, and then you can either do this directly from add records from this option here, or if you're in your sync configuration, you'll have that option as well right there. And I'm going to choose Airtable base, and that's called Sales CRM Demo. Table is months, and the view is actual. Or I could have just pasted in my share link there. Now this is the part that makes it really cool. So this by default is saying, all right, sync this to a new number field, but I don't want to do that. I want to sync it to my existing field that I already have. So you can actually point different data sources into the same field here, like funnel it all into the same column. And when I do this, now I have two sources. Give it a second to sync up. But it automatically has given me this select field here that I'm going to change my colors of quickly. So the charts will look nice and pretty. Actually, I'm going to rename this just like number. And that's all I need to do for the syncing. So now I can actually go into my interfaces. I'm just going to create a blank one just to demo how now I can grab the chart. And if I change my x-axis to the date, I could bucket it by month or whatever I'd want to bucket by. And I want to do my field summary of that number column. Just sum it up. But really, I don't want a bar chart. I want a line chart. And when I group it by that sync source field, now I have a comparison of my target versus my actual numbers in what I find to be a pretty simple way that's going to just keep up with all my opportunities as I add them. And I don't have to go through any automations of doubling up this table. I can just keep everything here, and then I have the ability to do more with those numbers, like see how far off of my goal I am.
Solid.
That's great stuff. Getting very good reaction from the viewers, saying it's awesome, brilliant use, and Russell saying he had a similar idea as well. So cool stuff.
Thank you. I'm excited. I literally kind of dreamed this up the other night while I was thinking about it, and I got really excited. I was like, I have to go try it. So I'm excited to see what else you could do. I think there's a lot of different use cases you could do for this.
Yeah, because you could have, what's the limit on number of different sources?
I think 3.
I think you can do more than 3 now. I
thought it was 6 is the number I had.
I think it's something like that, and it also depends whether you have a legacy account or not. And I think, but if I went back into the base, yeah, because I can just keep adding more, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure what the number is quite off the top of my head, but I know it's more than 2 now. It used to be 2 or 3, and then they upped it.
both Kavan and Russell mentioned that you could then even sync this data back to the original to get it back in. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fun to do.
As Lorenzo pointed out a little earlier, permissions are kind of still very limited for what you can show. You could say, don't show this information at all to this group of users. So, in some cases, you might just want to keep this base literally just this table so that, if you're in an interface and you're looking at these charts and then they, click the go back to base button, they still only see just this.
Right.
But yeah, syncing back to the original base, if you don't care about, the permissions or the visibility aspect of it, means that you don't have to flip back and forth between this interface and then the other interface if, you were building out a larger system.
Exactly.
Yeah. Justin mentions that the source limit is 3 for Pro and 20 for Enterprise.
Excellent.
So, yeah. Awesome. That is like a real useful workaround, and hopefully people get value out of this and can go through that demo and use it in their scenarios.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. That wraps up our show for today, right at the hour mark. We're always glad to have new faces join us. Lorenzo, thank you so much for joining. Excited to see where you take your business. I could see that business taking off to where that could be a full-time endeavor for you. So pretty exciting.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yep. And Camille and Alli, always great to have you on. And we will see everybody next week on our next live episode of our BuiltOnAir podcast. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our sponsor, ontoair.com, and we will see you next time on the BuiltOnAir podcast.